Y'all, it's spooky season, and you know what that means. There's another controversy afoot. Today, we're going to be talking about Headless Horseman. This spell has had a gigantic history in Wizard101, and right now, there's a lot of people criticizing the rollout of its spellements in Wiz. This spell's kind of a maverick at this point because it follows almost no rules that a normal spellment follows, but right now, it is farmable for spellments for the first time ever. To have access to the new, instance that they've actually used to make this farmable, all you have to do is go into Darkmoor, and I guess if you've already completed it or have a port in, you could do this. You very simply go into the upper halls, right? And this is the boss right here. And this is a very, very easy boss. If you actually have someone that can scald and incendiate, if y'all know about that strategy, it's one-shottable. There's other ways to one-shot this boss. This is a very, very farmable key boss. Very not like other key bosses that they've added. So Sauce, they added a boss. You can farm the spellments. It sounds easy enough. What's the outrage? That's a great question. Well, people started farming this, and they found that they were getting drops that were less than what they were used to. And I think that's very valid, right? If you do a whole boss, and then you get one headless spellment, like this screenshot shows, and that does seem to be a very realistic expectation from this. If you do this, you'll get anywhere from 1 to 3 spellments. That seems to be, based on people doing runs, that seems to be the expectation. Now, I think there are two parts to this problem. There's the numbers side, which will not be in the favor of the player here, and then there's the psychological side, which is deeply in the favor of the player. And in breaking down this problem, I think you cannot make a genuine argument unless you look at both, so let's look at it. Headless is a weird spell. Basically, the way that it works is it's not based on the 5-tier system that other spells are, right? Like, if you look at the other spells, you need 5 tiers of spellments to get them all the way to max. And this is no joke. It keeps increasing every tier. So it's not just half the work to get spellments for Headless. It's a lot less than half. In order to get a max tier spell that's 1 through 6 or any lore spell that's, that's on the 5-tier system, you need 685 spellments after learning the spell. Headless, you only need 190, 75 for tier 2 and then 115 for tier 3. Additionally, unlike other lore spells where learning the actual spell, which takes 35 spellments, is going to be a pretty realistic part of what you use your spellments on, Headless is also different. It gets a bonus because this is a spell that is farmable at a very, very high drop rate from Lore Master right now. So I'm going to give some really, really weird advice here, but I think it actually applies. If your goal is just to learn the spell, period, you've never had the spell before, I actually recommend doing the gold key boss for 35 spellments. If you split keys with friends, you average 2 spellments a run, which is what you, I think, would expect to average. That's about 18 keys. That's about 5 keys a person. That's really, really not that bad, right? If you're a member and you've been using your loyalty tokens, it's super easy. If you've been doing daily assignments, it's super easy. If you do Beast Moon or PvP, it is extremely easy, which we will talk about. But as you can tell, there's already people farming this, a bunch of Death Wizards, and there's no reason not to do this. I recommend farming this if you're trying to tier 2 this spell, right? I think you'll probably end up saving time learning the spell and then farming the actual spellments for PvP. That seems to be the strategy that should work based on just what's available to me. But if you've never learned it, you could also just farm Bun for Rodtooth to learn the spell and upgrade it. Now, do you really need to tier 3 the spell? That's the other extremely important point here. I think a lot of people are treating this like a 190 spellment grind. It is a 10 damage difference, and I'll tell you this much. Yes, this spell, you could spam the hell out of it in PvP, and yes, maybe the 10 extra damage, maybe it'll matter a little bit, but I would argue that the actual use of this is going to be when you have 6 infections on your opponent, and you're setting up a weakness gambit, you strike, they weakness counter, and then you want a way to manually set up weaknesses again. This is, in my opinion, the big use of this. That's going to be a game changer. Otherwise, you're just going to spam hit and weaknesses, but you can also spam weaknesses and hits, right? I mean, it's only so much situationally better. I'm not saying people won't spam this. Surely they will, but I'm saying even if you consider the spammable nature of the spell, there are still uses of the spell that go beyond that to the point where that 10 little bit of damage really won't matter that much. Meaning, your goal should be to learn the spell and get 75 spellments, and if you have the time, get the other spellments. It's 10 damage. If you're a perfectionist, it'll matter. in all uses beyond that, I really don't think it's gonna matter. The fact that the tier 2 version versus the tier 3 version is a 10 damage difference is a huge difference from other lore spells where it's not a small difference, right? The base version of Catch of the Day versus the max tiered version, I'd say 45 damage between the tier 2 and the tier 5 version of like Catch of the Day, for example. That's almost like 10% of the spell's worth. That is a big upgrade, right? Like, that's not the case with this. I would aim to learn the spell, get 75 Spellements, and that's really not that bad. But let's say that you were to max tier it. Is this a bad Spellman drop rate? And this is the main reason why I say the number side of things just very unfortunately is just, in my opinion, not on the side of the players. Maybe they will make the drop rates better just to make people feel better. But numbers wise, I actually think Headless Horseman Spellments are actually a little bit more generous. And the reason I say this, right? Let's say that you fight a boss that traditionally drops lore Spellments with gold keys. I'm spitballing here, but let's say that the average drops, right, are about double what Headless is right now, right? It's actually gonna be, you're looking at maybe like, at that point, 5 to 6 Spellments on average per, you know, run of a gold key boss. But considering that to max tier something like Catalan, you need to do 685 Spellments worth of runs, that's about 100 gold keys, assuming you get 6 Catalans a run on average. I would argue you actually get a little less, but let's be generous just for the sake of an argument. So you're talking about a scenario where you need over 100 keys to max tier Catalan. If you were to assume 2 drops a run with Headless, and you wanted to max tier this, you're looking at what? Not 100 keys, 95. So max tiering this takes honestly less keys than most lore spells, and you don't have as much of an incentive to max tier it like other lore spells. But are the players completely wrong, Sauce? Are they stupid? Do they just not know how to do math? I do think the math part might have, like, you know, some validity, but I think the crux of the argument is the fact that the psychological impact of doing a boss and getting 1 drop is kind of ass. And I think it has a simple solution. Whether you guys think this would actually do anything differently or not, I think they should make 3-tier spells, not take 75 Spellments to upgrade and not take 115 to upgrade again, but maybe a little bit more so that when you actually farm bosses, you feel like you're getting more progress. Even though the progress effectively won't be different, you'll feel like you're getting more. I know that seems stupid because effectively you're spending the same amount of time, you're getting the same effect out of every run, every gold key. But if you were ever to put value on the feeling of getting rewarded from doing this, I think that's one solution they could do specifically for spells like that are seasonal, right? These are spells like, I want to say Krampus is, yeah, that's on a 3-tier system. Headless is another one. Any seasonal things that they add. Maybe they could do that so you're not farming this boss and getting 1 Spellman and feeling like you're not making as much progress. Now, the one feeling that I do think people tapped into that I think is very valid is this boss doesn't seem to drop gear that is actually like worth a gold key like a lot of other gold keys. A lot of other gold keys, they drop pack gear. Not all of them, but some of them do. It would have been cool with the re-release of the Grim Ferryman pack, the Cerberus Master pack, all the Halloween cosmetics, including the one that I'm wearing right now. It would have been cool to include those in the drop table, considering this is a seasonal boss, right? This isn't going to be around for a while. This wouldn't really affect profits. It would just give you an extra bang for your buck for every gold key. As far as actual access to gold keys, I do think there is a messaging problem because people really think you can only get them with loyalty tokens and daily assignments. But I would argue that actually doing a lot of Beast Moon is one way to get gold keys. This isn't my main Beast Moon player. You get these reagents very easily. These are very generous, right? It's any school moonstone, any elemental or spirit moonstone, hunter moonstones. These are very, very easy to get. And if you're trying to get Headless for PvP and you've been doing a lot of PvP, there's a very, very easy way to make gold keys if you do a lot of PvP as well. While gold medals are kind of hard to get because you need to be captain in order to get them, the other medals are very, very easy. Right now, this character, one of my 7 characters, not even the one that I PvP on the most, not even the highest ranked, I can make 20 keys right now, and I've been crafting these. So there are ways to get gold keys, especially if you're trying to do PvP with these spells. Maybe there's a messaging error, as in people don't really know that these sources exist. But if you know that these sources exist, then surely you shouldn't have that big of a problem getting these Spellments. And the reason I say this, let's say that you get 2 drops a run, which is something you can assume from this gauntlet, and you want to, you know, just upgrade it once, you're looking at a measly 75, like, Spellments. If you're farming this with 4 people, you can assume that it'll take about 37 runs, 38 runs in order to get it. Divide 37 to 38 by the 4 people that are farming this, you're looking at, you know, like, what is it, like 8 or 9 keys a person? That's really not that bad to get such a valuable spell for 1 school. All in all, while I do think there's validity to people getting annoyed like at things like getting 1 drop, at things like maybe not having as much access to gold key unless you do some really, really grindy side activities. Like, people see PvP as a grindy side activity. And also the lack of actual other drops from this boss. Like, you really aren't going to farm this boss for anything other than Headless. While those are valid, I do think that people that took this as an opportunity to criticize the actual drop model, you didn't crunch the numbers. You didn't look at the numbers. You didn't compare it to other lore spells. You didn't look at anything. And I think that's something people need to be better at, right? This could have been easily an opening for a conversation where you're like, yo, this boss feels like you don't get as much gear that you might find useful, and let's talk about how players get gold keys, right? We have more and more instances where gold keys are used. Are there more and more drop sources for gold keys as the years go on? But instead, a lot of people said the devs don't test these things. This is awful. This is something that's clearly glitched. This is bugged, and made people like me not even want to farm this. It's definitely food for thought. I think people are very quick to criticize without even looking and comparing things like, you know, maybe the number of tiers, how you acquire the original spell, how it compares to other lore spells, whether you need to max tier it. These are questions that I hope were addressed in this video that I don't think a lot of people critiquing this did. All in all, I hope I, you know, talked about the flaws of how they rolled out Headless and maybe how some of the arguments against it aren't really true. But I would love to hear y'all's opinions on this. Do you guys think that the acquisition of Headless Horseman is flawed? What would you do to change it? What would you do to the Bun for Ratu boss? I look forward to reading all of y'all's comments. Drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub if you're new, and as always, if somebody hasn't told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong. Stay awesome. See y'all soon, and yeah.